My dear Robert, it is a very awkward business. Very awkward indeed. You should have told your wife the whole thing. Secrets from other people's wives are a necessary luxury in modern life, but no man should ever keep a secret from his own wife. She invariably finds it out.
Arthur, I couldn't tell my wife. Not last night. It would have made a lifelong separation between us, and I would have lost the love of the one woman in the world I worship.
This Lady Chiltern is perfect as all that.
Yes, my wife is as perfect as all that.
What a pity. I beg your pardon, my dear fellow, I didn't quite mean that, but if what you tell me is true, I should like to have a serious talk about life with Lady Chiltern.
It'd be quite useless.
What, may I try?
Yes, but nothing would make her alter her views.
Well, at worst, it would simply be a psychological experiment. Well, I'm bound to say that I think you should have told her that years ago.
When? When we were engaged? Do you think she would have married me if she had known that the origin of my fortune is such as it is? The basis of my career, such as it is? And that I have done a thing that I suppose most men would call shameful and dishonorable.
Yes, most men would call it ugly names. There's no doubt about that.
Men who every day do something of the same kind themselves. And after all, whom did I wrong by what I did? No one.
Except yourself, Robert.
Of course, I had private information about a certain transaction contemplated by the government of the day, and I acted on it. Private information is practically the source of every large modern fortune.
And public scandal, invariably the result.
Every man of ambition has to fight his century with its own weapons. What this century worships is wealth. To succeed, one must have wealth. At all costs, one must have wealth.
You underrate yourself, Robert. Believe me, without wealth, you could have succeeded just as well.
When I was old, perhaps, I wanted success when I was young. Youth is the time for success. I couldn't wait.
Well, you certainly have had your success while you are still young. No one in our day has had such a brilliant success. Under-Secretary for Foreign Affairs at the age of 40. Good enough for anyone, I should think.
And if it's all taken away from me now, if I lose everything over a horrible scandal.
No, Robert. How could you have sold yourself for money?
I did not sell myself for money. I bought success at a great price, that is all.
Well, you certainly paid a great price for it. But what first made you think of doing such a thing?
Baron Arnheim.
Scoundrel!
No, he was a man of most subtle and refined intellect. A man of culture, charm, and distinction. One of the most intellectual men I ever met.
Well, I prefer a gentlemanly fool any day. There is more to be said for stupidity than people imagine. Personally, I have a great admiration for stupidity. But tell me, how did the Baron finally persuade you to do what you did?
When I was going away, he said to me that if I ever could give him any private information of real value, he would make me a very rich man. And I was dazed at the prospect he held out to me. And my ambition and my desire for power were at that time boundless. 6 weeks later, certain private documents passed through my hands.
State documents?
Yes.
Well, I had no idea that of all the men in the world, Robert, you could have been so weak as to yield to such a temptation as Baron Arnheim held up to you.
Weak. I'm sick of hearing that phrase. Do you really think, Arthur, that it's weakness that yields to temptation? I tell you that there are terrible temptations that require strength and courage to yield to. I had that courage. I sat down that same afternoon and wrote Baron Arnheim the letter this woman now holds. He made $750,000 over the transaction.
And you?
Well, I received from the Baron £110,000.
You were worth more, Robert.
No! That money gave me exactly what I wanted, power over others. I went into the house immediately. The Baron advised me in finance from time to time, and before 5 years, I had almost tripled my fortune in all things connected with money. I have had luck so extraordinary that sometimes it's made me almost afraid.
But tell me, Robert, did you ever suffer any regret for what you did?
No. Arthur, do you despise me for what I told you?
I am very sorry for you, Robert. I'm very sorry indeed.
Look, I don't say that I suffered any remorse. I did it. At least not remorse in the silly, rather ordinary sense of the word. But I have paid conscience money many times.
As regards this dreadful business, I will help you in whatever way I can. But of course, you know that, Robert.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you. But what can be done? What is to be done?
In your case, Robert, a confession would not do. The money, if you will allow me to say so, it's awkward. And besides, if you want to make a clean breast of the whole affair, there would be nothing left for you as a profession except botany. Or the church. No, a confession would be of no use. It would ruin you.
It would ruin me. Arthur, the only thing for me to do now is to fight the thing out.
I was waiting for you to say that. It is the only thing left to do now, and you must begin by telling your wife the whole story.
That I will not do.
Robert, believe me, you're wrong.
I couldn't do it. It would kill her love for me. Now about this woman, this Mrs. Cheveley. How can I defend myself against her? You knew her before, Arthur, apparently.
Yes.
Did you know her well?
So little that I got engaged to be married to her once when I was staying under 10 days. The affair lasted for 3 days. Nearly.
Why was it broken off?
No, I forget. At least it makes no matter. Oh, by the way, have you tried her with money? She used to be confoundedly fond of money.
I offered any sum she wanted. She refused.
Robert, you must fight her! You must fight her!
But how?
I can't tell you how at present. I haven't the smallest idea. But everyone has some weak point. There is some flaw in each one of us. My father tells me that even I have faults. Perhaps I have. I don't know.
In defending myself against Mrs. Cheveley, I have a right to use any weapon I can find, have I not?
Oh, in your place, I don't think I should have the smallest scruple in doing so. She's thoroughly well able of taking care of herself.
Well, I shall send a cipher telegram to the embassy at Vienna to inquire if there's anything known against her. There might be some secret scandal she may be afraid of.
I should fancy that Mrs. Cheveley is one of those very modern women of our time who fancy a new scandal as much as a new bonnet, and air them both in the park every afternoon at 5:30. I'm sure that she adores scandals, and that the sorrow of her life at present is that she can't manage to have enough of them. Well, she wore far too much rouge last night and not quite enough clothes. Always a sign of despair in a woman.
Well, it is worth my while, my writing to Vienna, is it not?
It is always worthwhile asking a question, Robert, though it is not always worthwhile answering one.
Is Mr. Trafford in his room?
Yes, Sir Robert.
Tell him to have this sent off in cipher at once. There must not be a moment's delay.
Yes, Sir Robert.
She must have had a curious hold over there, not I wonder what it was.
I wonder.
I will fight her to the death, as long as my wife knows nothing.
Oh, fight in any case, Robert. In any case.
Well, as soon as I hear from Vienna, I shall let you know the result. It is a chance, just a chance, but I believe in it.
My dear Robert, I should not build too high hopes on frightening Mrs. Cheveley. I should not fancy Mrs. Cheveley is a woman who would be easily frightened.
I live on hopes now. I clutch at every chance. I feel like a man on a ship that is sinking. Hush, I hear my wife.
Good afternoon, Lord Goring.
Oh, good afternoon, Lady Chiltern. How do you do?
No, I have just come from the Women's Liberal Association, where, by the way, Robert, your name was received with loud applause. And now I have come in to have my tea. You will wait and have some tea, won't you?
I'll wait for a short time, thanks.
I will be back in a moment. I'm only going to take my hat off.
Oh, please don't. It is so pretty. One of the prettiest hats I ever saw. I hope that the Women's Liberal Association received it with loud applause.
We have much more important work to do than to look at each other's bonnets, Lord Goring.
Really? That sort of work.
Everything, in fact, that you would find thoroughly and interesting.
And never bonnets.
Never bonnets, never.
You've been a good friend to me, Arthur. A thoroughly good friend.
Well, I don't know that I've been able to do much for you, Robert, as yet. In fact, I haven't been able to do anything for you as far as I can see. I'm thoroughly disappointed in myself.
You have enabled me to tell you the truth. That is something. The truth is always stifled me. See you soon again, Arthur, shan't I?
Well, certainly. Whenever you like. I'm going to look in at the bachelor's ball tonight, unless I find something better to do. But I'll come round tomorrow morning. If you should want me tonight by any chance, send a note around to Curzon Street.
Thank you.
You are not going, Robert.
Oh, I have some letters to write, dear.
You work too hard, Robert. You seem never to think of yourself. And you're looking so tired.
Nothing, dear. Nothing.
Do sit down. I am so glad you have called. I want to talk to you about, well, not about bonnets, or the Women's Liberal Association. You take far too much interest in the first subject, not nearly enough in the second.
You want to talk to me about Mrs. Cheveley?
Yes, you have guessed it. After you left last night, I found that what she had said was really true. Of course, I made Robert write her a letter at once, withdrawing his promise.
So he gave me to understand. But, Lady Chiltern, if you will allow me, I think that sometimes in practical life...
Of which you know so little, Lord Goring.
Of which I know nothing by experience. No, I know something by observation. I think that in practical life, there is something about success, about actual success, that is a little unscrupulous. And something about ambition that is unscrupulous always. Of course, I'm only talking generally about life.
I hope so. Why do you look at me so strangely, Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you're a little hard in some of your views on life. Sometimes you don't make sufficient allowances. Look, in every nature, there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for instance, that any public man, my father, or Lord Merton, or Robert, say, had years ago written some foolish letter.
What do you mean by foolish letter?
A letter gravely compromising one's position. I'm only putting in an imaginary case.
Robert is as incapable of doing a wrong thing as he is of doing a foolish thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a wrong thing or a foolish thing. Look, all I do know is that life cannot be lived without much charity. It cannot be understood without much charity. It is love and not German philosophy that is the true explanation of this world. And if ever you are in trouble, Lady Chiltern, trust me absolutely and I will help you in whatever way I can. If you need me, come to me for my assistance and you shall have it. Come at once to me.
You're talking quite seriously, Lord Goring. I don't think I've ever heard you talk seriously before.
You must excuse me, Lady Chiltern. It won't occur again if I can help it.
But I'd like you to be serious.
Dear Gertrude, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lord Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to him. Good afternoon, Lord Goring. Pray, be as trivial as you can.
I should like to, Miss Mabel, but I'm afraid I'm a little out of practice this morning. And besides, I have to be going now.
Just when I've come in, what dreadful manners you have. I'm sure you were very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I had brought you up.
So sorry you didn't.
It's too late now, I suppose.
I'm not so sure.
Will you ride tomorrow morning?
Yes, at 10.
Don't forget.
Of course I shall. Goodbye, Lady Chiltern. You will remember what I told you, won't you?
Yes, but I don't know why you said it to me.
I hardly know myself. Goodbye, Miss Mabel.
I wish you were not going. I've had 4 wonderful adventures this morning. 4 and a half, in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
Well, how very selfish of you to have had 4 and a half. You're really left for me.
I don't want it to have any. They would not be good for you.
Well, that is the first unkind thing you've ever said to me. And how charmingly well you've said it. 10 tomorrow?
Sharp.
Quite sharp. Don't bring Mr. Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
What has poor Mr. Trafford done this time? Robert says he's the best secretary he has ever had.
Well, Tommy has proposed to me. Again. Tommy really does nothing but propose to me. He proposed to me in broad daylight this morning, in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles. Really, the things that go on in front of that work of art are quite appalling. The police should interfere. At luncheon, I saw by the glare in his eyes that he was going to propose again. And I just managed to check him in time by assuring him that I was a bimetallist. Fortunately, I don't know what bimetallism means, and I don't believe anybody else does either. But the observation crushed Tommy for 10 minutes. He looked quite shocked. And then, Tommy is so annoying in the way he proposes. If he proposed at the top of his voice, I should not mind so much. But he does it in a horrid, confidential way. When Tommy wants to be a romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor. Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford and tell him that once a week is quite often enough to propose to anyone. And that it should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention.
Dear Mabel, don't talk like that. Besides, Robert thinks very highly of Mr. Trafford. He believes he has a brilliant future before him.
Why wouldn't marry a man with a future perform for anything under the sun?
Mabel?
I know, dear. You married a man with a future, didn't you? But then Robert was a genius, and you have a noble, self-sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. As a rule, I think they're quite impossible. Geniuses talk so much, don't they? Such a bad habit. They're always thinking about themselves when I want them to be thinking about me. I must go round now and rehearse at Lady Basildon's. You remember we are having tableau, don't you? Not trying for something. I don't know what. I hope it will be trying for me. The only triumph I'm really interested in at present. Oh, Gertrude, do you know who is coming to see you? That dreadful Mrs. Cheveley in a most lovely gown. Did you ask her?
Mrs. Cheveley, coming to see me? Impossible.
I assure you, she is coming upstairs as large as life, and not nearly as natural.
You need not wait, Mabel. Remember, Lady Basildon is expecting you.
Oh, I must shake hands with Lady Markby. She is delightful. I love being spoken about her.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Cheveley.
Dear Lady Markby, how nice of you to come and see me. Won't you sit down, Mrs. Cheveley?
Thanks. Is that Miss Chiltern? I should like so much to get to know her.
Mabel, Mrs. Cheveley wishes to know you.
I thought your frock to be so charming last night. It was so simple and suitable.
Really? I must tell my dressmaker. It will be such a surprise to her. Goodbye, Lady Markby.
Going already?
I'm so sorry, but I'm obliged to. I'm just off to rehearsal. I've got to stand in my head in some tableau.
On your head, child? Oh, I hope not. I believe it is most unhealthy.
But it is for an excellent charity, in aid of the undeserving, the only people I am really interested in at present.
You are remarkably modern, Mabel. A little too modern, perhaps. Nothing is so dangerous as being too modern. One is apt to grow old-fashioned quite suddenly. I have known many instances of it.
What a dreadful prospect.
My dear, you need not be nervous. You will always be as pretty as possible. That is the best fashion there is, and the only fashion that England succeeds in setting.
Thank you so much, Lady Markby, for England and myself.
Dear Gertrude, we just called to know if Mrs. Cheveley's diamond brooch has been found.
Here? Yes, I missed it when I got back to Cambridge's and thought I might have dropped it here.
I have heard nothing about it, but I will send for the butler and ask.
Oh, pray don't trouble, Lady Chiltern. I dare say I lost it at the opera before we came on here.
Yes, I suppose it must have been at the opera. The fact is, we all scramble and jostle so much nowadays that I wonder if we have anything at all left on us at the end of an evening. What sort of a brooch was it that you lost, Mrs. Cheveley?
A diamond snake brooch.
Has a diamond brooch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Mason?
No, my lady.
It is really of no consequence, Lady Chiltern. I'm sorry to have put you to any inconvenience.
Oh, it has been no inconvenience. That will do, Mason. You can bring tea. Well, I must say it is most annoying to lose anything. I remember once at Bath years ago losing an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John had given me. I don't think he has ever given me anything since. I'm sorry to say. He has suddenly degenerated. Really, this horrid House of Commons quite ruins our husbands for us. I think the lower house, by far the greatest blow to a happy married life that there has been since,
that terrible thing called the higher education of women was invented.
Oh, it is very sweet to say that in this house, Lady Markby. Robert is a great champion of the higher education of women, and so, I am afraid, am I.
The higher education of men is what I would like to see. Men need it so sadly.
Do, dear. But I'm afraid such a scheme would be quite impractical. I don't think man has much capacity for development. With regard to women, well, dear Gertrude, you belong to the younger generation, and I'm sure it is all right if you approve of it. In my time, of course, we were taught not to understand anything. I assure you that the amount of things I and my poor dear sister were taught not to understand was quite extraordinary. But modern women understand everything, I'm told.
Except their husbands. That is the one thing the modern woman never understands.
And a very good thing too, dear. I dare say. It might break up many a happy home if they did. Not yours, Gertrude, I need hardly say. You have married a pattern husband. I wish I could say as much for myself. But since Sir John has taken to attending the debates regularly, his language has become quite impossible. He always seems to think that he's addressing the House, and consequently, whenever he discusses the state of the agricultural laborer, or the Welsh church, or something quite improper of that kind, I'm obliged to send all the servants out of the room. It is not pleasant to see one's own butler, who has been with one for 23 years, actually blushing at the sideboard, and the footmen making contortions in corners like persons in circuses. I assure you, my life will be quite ruined unless they send Sir John at once to the upper house. The House of Lords is so sensible. But in his present state, Sir John is really a great trial. I trust, Gertrude, that Sir Robert is not like that.
But I am very much interested in politics, Lady Markby. I love to hear Robert talk about them. May I give you some tea, Mrs. Cheveley?
Thanks.
Some tea, Lady Markby?
No thanks, dear. The fact is, I have promised to go round for 10 minutes to see poor Lady Brancaster, who is in very great trouble. You know Lady Brancaster, don't you, dear?
Just slightly. She was staying at Langton last autumn when we were there.
Well, like all stout women, she looks the very picture of happiness, as no doubt you noticed. But there are many tragedies in her family. Her own sister, Mrs. Jekyll, had a most unhappy life, through no fault of her own, I'm sorry to say. She ultimately was so broken-hearted that she went into a convent, or on the operatic stage. I forget which. No, I think it was decorative art needlework she took up. I know she had lost all sense of pleasure in life. And now, if you will allow me, I shall leave Mrs. Cheveley in your charge and call back for her in a quarter of an hour.
Oh, I hope Mrs. Cheveley will stay here a little. I should like to have a few minutes' conversation with her.
How very kind of you, Lady Chiltern. Believe me, nothing would bring me greater pleasure.
No doubt you both have many pleasant reminiscences of your school days to talk over together. Goodbye, dear. Oh. Shall I see what Lady Bonnet's tonight? She has discovered a wonderful new genius. He does nothing at all, I believe. Isn't that a great comfort?
Robert and I are dining at home by ourselves tonight, and I don't think I shall go anywhere afterwards. Robert, of course, will have to be in the house, but there is nothing interesting on.
Dining at home by yourselves? Is that quite prudent? Ah, I forgot. Your husband is an exception. Mine is a general rule. And nothing ages a woman so rapidly as having married. A general rule.
Wonderful woman, Lady Markby, is she not? Talks more and says less than anybody I've ever met. She is made to be a public speaker, much more so than her husband, although he is your typical Englishman, always dull and usually violent.
Mrs. Cheveley, I think it is right to tell you quite frankly that, had I known who you really were, I should not have invited you to my house last night.
Really?
I could not have done so.
I see that after all these years, Gertrude, you've not changed a bit.
I never change.
Then life has taught you nothing.
has taught me that a person who has once been guilty of a dishonest and dishonorable action may be guilty of it a second time and should be shunned.
Would you apply that rule to everyone?
Yes, to everyone without exception.
Then I feel very sorry for you, Gertrude. Very sorry.
You see now, I am quite sure that for many reasons, any further acquaintance between us during your stay in London is quite impossible.
Do you know, Gertrude, that I don't mind your talking morality to me a bit. Morality is simply the attitude we adopt to people we personally dislike. You dislike me, I'm quite aware of that. And I have always detested you. And yet, I have come here to offer you a service.
Like the service you wished to render my husband last night, I suppose. Thank heaven I saved him from that.
It was you who made him write that insolent letter to me. It was you who made him break his promise.
Yes.
Oh, well then you shall make him keep it. I give you till tomorrow, no more. If by then your husband does not solemnly bind himself to help me in this great scheme in which
This fraudulent speculation.
call it what you choose. I hold your husband in the hollow of my hand, and if you are wise, you will do as I tell him.
You are impertinent. What has my husband to do with you, a woman like you?
In this world, like meets like. It is because your husband is himself fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. He and I are closer than friends. We are enemies, linked together. The same sin binds us.
How dare you class my husband with yourself? How dare you threaten him or me? Leave my house, you're unfit to enter it.
Your house! A house bought with the price of dishonor. A house in which everything has been paid for by fraud. Why don't you ask him? Ask him what the origin of his fortune is. Get him to tell you how he sold to a stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn from him to what you owe, your position.
It is not true. Robert, it is not true.
Look at him. Can he deny it? Does he dare to?
Go. Go at once. You have done your worst now.
My worst? I have not finished with you. With either of you. I give you both till tomorrow, at noon. If by then you do not do what I bid you to do, well, the world shall know the origin of Robert Chiltern.
Show Mrs. Cheveley out.
You sold a cabinet secret for money? You began your life with fraud. Tell me it is not true. Lie to me. Tell me it is not true.
What this woman said is quite true. But Gertrude, listen to me. You don't realize how I was tempted. Let me tell you the whole thing.
Don't come near me. Don't touch me. I feel as if you had soiled me forever. What a mask you have been wearing all these years. You sold yourself for money? Oh, come a thief, Rebecca. You lied to the whole world, and yet you will not lie to me.
Gertrude. Gertrude.
Don't speak. Say nothing. Your voice wakes terrible memories. Memories of things that made me love you, and now are horrible to me. And how I worshipped you. You were to me something apart from common life. A thing pure, noble, honest, without stain. Oh, when I think that I'm made of a man like you, my ideal, the ideal of my life.
There was your error. Why can't you women love us, faults and all? Why do you place us on monstrous pedestals? We have all feet of clay, women as well as men. But when we men love women, we love them, knowing their weaknesses, their imperfections. Love them all the more, it may be, for that reason. It is not the perfect, but the imperfect who have need of love. I was afraid that I might lose your love, as I have lost it now. And so, last night, you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it! What this woman asked of me was nothing compared to what she offered to me. She offered security, peace, stability. The sin of my youth that I thought was buried rose up in front of me, hideous, horrible, with its hand at my throat. I could have killed it forever, burned the one witness against me. You prevented me. And now, what is there before me but public disgrace, ruin, terrible shame, a lonely, dishonored life, a lonely, dishonored death someday? Let women make normal ideals of men, or they may ruin other lives as completely as you, whom I have so wildly loved, have ruined mine.